My sister left me out of her wedding arrangements, and my mom justified it by explaining that my presence would distract from Sarah's moment, since I had just lost 80 pounds and looked better than ever. So I erased myself from the family the day I received my invitation addressed to guest of the bride's family instead of my actual name. I RSVP'd no, sold the $400 gift I had already bought, and used the money to book myself a spa weekend for the same date. I am Rebecca Fletcher, 29 years old, and I never imagined my own transformation would make me invisible to my family. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in March, delivered by my mother herself rather than through the mail. She stood in my apartment doorway with that tight smile she reserved for uncomfortable conversations, holding the cream-colored envelope like it might detonate. When I opened it, my hands were actually shaking with excitement. Sarah Ashford and Derek Montgomery request the honor of your presence. But where my name should have been, where every other guest would see their identity acknowledged, I found only guest of the bride's family. Not Rebecca, not even and guest, implying I could bring someone. Just a categorical erasure. My mother watched my face carefully as I processed this deliberate omission. Before you get upset, she began, her voice already defensive, you have to understand Sarah's position. This is her day, Rebecca, her moment. And with how you look now, after the weight loss, you would just distract from her as the bride. People would be looking at you instead of her. You understand, don't you? She said it so casually, as if asking me to understand why I couldn't wear white to a wedding. As if my year of grueling discipline, of transforming my body and reclaiming my health, was somehow an act of aggression against my sister. I stood there holding that invitation, my coffee growing cold on the counter behind me, and something crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. This was not about one wedding. This was about 29 years of being the forgettable daughter, the one whose achievements were footnotes to Sarah's headlines, whose pain was inconvenient, whose success was threatening. And in that moment, I decided I was done being written into their story as an unnamed extra. What my mother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent the past year not just losing weight, but building a life they knew nothing about. And I was about to show them exactly what they had discarded. The weight loss had not been about vanity. 18 months earlier, I had been diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome and prediabetes, my body finally rebelling after years of stress eating through family dinners where Sarah's accomplishments were toasted while mine were tolerated. My doctor had been blunt, change everything or face serious health consequences. So I changed everything. I found a nutritionist who understood PCOS, joined a gym with a trainer who made me feel capable instead of ashamed, and slowly, methodically, rebuilt my relationship with my body. What started as medical necessity became something else entirely. As the weight came off, something shifted internally. I started sleeping better, thinking clearer. I enrolled in the photography certification program I had been postponing for 5 years, telling myself I was too busy with my administrative job. I started actually using the camera equipment I had bought on credit and never touched. On weekends, instead of attending family gatherings where I felt like furniture, I hiked through state parks photographing wildlife, building a portfolio that surprised even me with its quality. By month 6, I had lost 40 pounds and gained a creative passion that made me feel alive in ways I had forgotten were possible. By month 9, I had lost 60 pounds and sold my first photograph to a nature magazine for $300. By month 12, I had lost 80 pounds, quit my soul-crushing administrative job, and secured a contract position as a photographer for a conservation nonprofit that actually valued my work. My entire life had transformed, but to my family, I had simply gotten thin. And even that, apparently, was a problem. The family dynamics had always been unbalanced. Sarah, 32, was the golden child who could do no wrong. Graduated top of her class from University of Michigan, married her college sweetheart at 25, though they divorced 2 years later when he had an affair, which somehow became a story of Sarah's brave resilience rather than poor judgment. Climbed the corporate ladder at a marketing firm, and now, at 32, was marrying Derek Montgomery, whose family owned a chain of successful car dealerships across the Midwest. I, by contrast, was the daughter who showed promise but never quite applied herself. I had graduated with decent grades from a state school, bounced between administrative positions that paid the bills but crushed my spirit, and spent my 20s in a series of relationships with men who were nice enough but forgettable. My photography had always been dismissed as a nice hobby that would never amount to anything practical. When I tried to share my excitement about a particularly beautiful shot or a new technique I had mastered, my father would pat my shoulder and say, "That's nice, honey," before turning the conversation back to Sarah's latest promotion or achievement. The wait had been both armor and prison. I ate my feelings, literally, consuming the disappointment and invisibility until my body became physical proof of my failure to matter. Family dinners were exercises in endurance. My mother would comment on my portions while piling praise onto Sarah's latest accomplishment. My father would suggest I try some new diet he'd read about, never asking why I might be struggling in the first place. Sarah would offer sympathetic looks that somehow felt more condescending than genuine concern. When I started losing weight, their initial reactions were enthusiastically supportive, but only because they saw it as me finally getting my act together to be more like Sarah. My mother bought me clothes 2 sizes too small as motivation. My father suggested I use my new look to find a quality man before I got too old. Sarah offered to take me shopping and teach me about makeup, as if I were a reclamation project rather than a grown woman. None of them noticed when I stopped coming to family dinners as frequently. I was busy building my photography business, yes, but I was also protecting the fragile new confidence I had developed. Every family gathering felt like being dragged back into old patterns, old roles, old pain. So I created distance, showed up for major holidays, and kept my real life, my growing success and happiness to myself. The engagement announcement had come 6 months before that devastating invitation. Sarah called me, giddy with excitement, talking rapidly about Derek's romantic proposal at a winery, the stunning ring, the wedding plans already forming in her mind. I had been genuinely happy for her, setting aside my complicated feelings about our relationship to celebrate her joy. I immediately started thinking about what I could contribute, what gift would be meaningful, how I could show up as the supportive sister I wanted to be despite everything. I had spent weeks selecting the perfect gift, a custom-designed wedding album from a prestigious artisan bookmaker costing $400 I could not really afford, but wanted to give anyway. It was leather-bound, hand-stitched, with spaces for photographs and handwritten notes, designed to become a family heirloom. I had planned to fill the first few pages with beautiful engagement photos I would take of them myself, a contribution that used my skills and showed my love. The invitation destroyed that generous impulse instantly. Standing in my apartment, my mother still hovering nervously in the doorway, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I looked up at her, my face carefully neutral, and said, "I understand completely. In fact, I think it is best if I don't attend at all. I would not want to distract from Sarah's special day." My mother's eyes widened. This was not the script she expected. I was supposed to protest a little, feel hurt but ultimately comply, show up and play my assigned role as the lesser daughter grateful to be included at all. "Rebecca, don't be dramatic," she said, her voice taking on that edge it got when I wasn't cooperating. "Of course you are attending. You are her sister." "Am I?" I asked quietly. Because guest of the bride's family could be anyone. An aunt, a cousin, a family friend. Not once on this invitation is my actual name mentioned. Sarah knows my name. You know my name. But apparently for her wedding, I am just a generic +1. I held up the invitation. "This is not an invitation to me, Mom. This is a courtesy acknowledgement that I exist in proximity to your family. And I am declining." "You are being ridiculous," she snapped, her sympathy evaporating. "This is about your pride, isn't it? You lose some weight and suddenly you think you are too good for your own family?" The accusation was so perfectly backwards, so completely missing the point, that I almost laughed. "No, Mom. This is about me finally understanding my value, even if you never will. Please give Sarah my regards and let her know I won't be able to attend. I have other plans that weekend." I did not at that moment have other plans, but I would. After my mother left in a huff, predicting I would regret this immaturity, I sat on my couch and made 3 decisive moves. First, I canceled the order for the custom wedding album and requested a full refund, which the artisan graciously provided given the early cancellation. Second, I texted my RSVP to Sarah's wedding email with a simple, "Rebecca Fletcher will not be attending. Best wishes for your happiness." Third, I went online and booked myself a luxury spa weekend at a resort 4 hours away for the exact dates of the wedding weekend, spending every penny of that $400 on massages, facials, gourmet meals, and a private yoga session. If I was going to be erased from my sister's celebration, I would erase myself completely, but on my terms, investing in my own joy rather than their dismissal. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Within 2 hours of my RSVP, my phone exploded with calls and texts. Sarah called 4 times before leaving a voicemail that oscillated between hurt and fury. "I cannot believe you are doing this to me. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to have my own sister refuse to come to my wedding? Mom said you are throwing a tantrum because of the invitation wording. Grow up, Rebecca. This is not about you." That last sentence crystallized everything perfectly. This was not about me. It never had been. That was exactly the problem. My father called next, his voice tight with disappointment I had heard countless times before. "Your mother is very upset. Sarah is in tears. I thought you had finally matured this past year, but apparently you are still the same selfish girl who cannot handle not being the center of attention. You will attend this wedding, apologize to your sister, and stop causing unnecessary drama." I did not answer any of them. Instead, I turned off my phone and spent the evening editing photographs from a recent shoot at a local wetland preserve. There was something meditative about the work, adjusting light and shadow, bringing out details invisible to the casual observer. A blue heron mid-strike, its focus absolute. A turtle basking on a log, ancient and unbothered. A dragonfly's wings catching sunlight like stained glass. These images felt more real to me than any family gathering ever had. When I finally turned my phone back on the next morning, there were 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from my mother and Sarah, but there were also messages from aunts, cousins, even Sarah's maid of honor Amanda, whom I barely knew. The narrative had been established. I was jealous of Sarah's happiness, bitter about my years of being overweight, and now using my weight loss as an excuse to punish the family with my absence. Not a single message asked why I might be hurt. Not one person questioned whether addressing me as guest of the bride's family might have been hurtful. The missing element in every message was curiosity about my perspective, my feelings, my experience. I was the problem to be managed, not a person to be understood. Amanda's message was particularly revealing. "Hey, Rebecca. Sarah is really devastated. She didn't mean anything by the invitation thing. She just thought it would be easier since you're between boyfriends right now. Can you please just come to the wedding? It would mean so much to her." Between boyfriends, as if my worth was measured by proximity to a man, as if being single was a shameful state that justified erasure. I responded only to Amanda, keeping it simple. "I appreciate you reaching out, but my decision stands. I hope the wedding is beautiful." Then I blocked everyone except my parents. I was not interested in being persuaded, guilted, or explained to. I had made my choice, and for the first time in my life, I was prioritizing my own dignity over their comfort. The weeks that followed revealed fractures I had not fully recognized before. My mother showed up at my apartment twice, both times unannounced, both times demanding I reconsider. "What will people think?" she asked during her second visit, her primary concern finally visible. "What will I tell our relatives when they ask where you are? That my own daughter chose a spa weekend over her sister's wedding?" "Tell them the truth," I suggested. "Tell them I was not actually invited as myself, just as a generic family guest, and I declined. Or tell them I was busy. Or tell them whatever story makes you comfortable. I stopped caring about managing your image when you stopped caring about my feelings." She left in tears, but they felt performative rather than genuine. My father sent a formal email, the kind he might send to a disappointing employee, outlining all the ways I was failing my familial obligations. He mentioned the money they had spent raising me, the opportunities they had provided, the love they had given, and how my current behavior was a slap in the face to everything we have done for you. I did not respond. Instead, I printed the email and put it in a folder I labeled Evidence of Conditional Love. I had a feeling I might need documentation later. Sarah's approach was different. She posted on social media about the stress of wedding planning and how hard it was when people you loved let you down. She never mentioned me by name, but the implication was clear to anyone who knew us. Friends commented with sympathy, telling her she deserved better, that real family showed up. I watched this performance from the outside, marveling at how effortlessly she positioned herself as the victim in a situation where she had literally erased my identity. 3 weeks before the wedding, Sarah sent a long email that I almost did not read. But curiosity won. The message was a masterpiece of manipulation disguised as reconciliation. She began by acknowledging that maybe the invitation wording was not ideal, but explained it had been the wedding planner's suggestion to simplify the guest list. She claimed she had not even noticed the specific wording because she was so overwhelmed with decisions. Then came the real purpose. I know we have not always had the closest relationship, and maybe I have not been the best sister. But I am trying now. I want you there, Rebecca. I want you to be part of this day. I am even willing to let you take some photographs if you want, unofficial ones, just for the family. That is how much it means to me. I read that email 3 times, each time feeling a different shade of rage. She was willing to let me take photographs, as if she were doing me a favor, as if my professional work was a hobby she might indulge, as if erasing my name was an administrative oversight rather than a reflection of how she saw me. And the acknowledgement that we have not always had the closest relationship was so passive, so devoid of accountability, that it told me everything I needed to know. I crafted my response carefully. Sarah, I appreciate you reaching out. However, my decision remains unchanged. I will not be attending your wedding. I wish you genuine happiness, but I am no longer willing to accept a relationship where my presence is negotiable and my identity is optional. I hope you have a beautiful day. Please do not contact me further about this. Her response came within minutes. Fine, be selfish. But don't expect me to welcome you back with open arms when you realize what you have thrown away. Family is supposed to be there for each other, but apparently that only applies when it is convenient for you. I blocked her number immediately. The irony of her lecturing me about family obligation while simultaneously having erased me from her wedding was apparently lost on her entirely. But it was not lost on me. I screenshotted the entire exchange and added it to my evidence folder. As the wedding date approached, my excitement for my spa weekend grew. I had upgraded to a suite with a private balcony overlooking a lake, added a sunrise kayaking session, and booked a therapeutic art class where guests created paintings inspired by nature. Every dollar I spent felt like an investment in choosing myself, finally, after 29 years of making myself smaller to fit into their narrative. 2 days before I left for the spa, my mother made one final attempt. She showed up with my father, both of them dressed formally as if this were an intervention. They sat in my living room, refusing the coffee I offered, and presented a united front. We have decided to give you one last chance to make this right, my father began. If you attend the wedding, we will forget this entire incident. You can apologize to Sarah, take some family photos, and we will move forward as if this never happened. I looked at them both, these people who had raised me but never really seen me, and felt an unexpected calm. No, I said simply. I will not be attending. I will not be apologizing. And this will not be forgotten, at least not by me. You have shown me exactly where I stand in this family, and I have accepted it. Now I am acting accordingly. My mother's face crumpled. How can you be so cruel? After everything we have done for you? That word, cruel, coming from a woman who had justified my erasure to protect my sister's spotlight, was almost funny. I am not being cruel, Mom. I am being clear. There is a difference. You have spent my entire life asking me to shrink, to dim, to disappear so that Sarah could shine brighter. I finally did what you wanted. I disappeared. You just do not like that I did it on my terms instead of yours. They left without another word. I watched them walk to their car, my father's arm around my mother's shoulders, both of them united in their disappointment in me. And I felt nothing except relief that I would never again contort myself to earn approval they were never going to genuinely give. The night before my spa weekend, I posted a single photograph on my social media, carefully chosen. It was a self-portrait I had taken recently, standing on a cliff edge at sunset, my silhouette strong and whole against the blazing sky. The caption read, Choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. Here is to celebrating your own worth, especially when no one else will. I did not mention the wedding. I did not have to. The people who understood, understood. The people who did not, never would. I turned off notifications and packed my bag for the most important celebration I had attended in years, the one where I was the guest of honor, named and known and finally, beautifully visible to myself. The spa weekend was transcendent in ways I had not anticipated. I arrived Friday afternoon, 2 days before Sarah's wedding, and checked into a suite that overlooked a pristine lake surrounded by autumn foliage just beginning to turn. The resort was called Serenity Springs, tucked into the mountains of northern Michigan, far enough from home that I felt genuinely disconnected from the chaos I had left behind. My phone was off completely, stored in my suitcase. I had informed my boss at the conservation nonprofit that I would be unreachable except for genuine emergencies, and I had set up an automatic email response that simply stated I was unavailable until Monday. No explanations, no justifications, just boundaries, cleanly drawn. The first evening, I had a 90-minute deep tissue massage that unknotted muscles I had not realized were tensed. The therapist, a serene woman named Margaret, worked in silence except to occasionally ask about pressure. As her hands worked through years of stored stress, I found myself unexpectedly emotional. When she finished and left me alone to dress, I sat on the massage table and cried. Not from sadness, but from the unfamiliar sensation of being cared for without judgment, without expectation, without needing to perform or justify my existence. Dinner that night was at the resort's farm-to-table restaurant, a solo experience I had been slightly nervous about. But the staff treated single diners with the same attentive service as couples and groups. I ordered the chef's tasting menu, 7 courses of beautifully prepared local cuisine, and paired it with a Michigan Riesling the sommelier recommended. Each dish was a small revelation: roasted beet salad with goat cheese and candied walnuts, lake perch with lemon caper butter, venison medallions with blackberry reduction. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, reading a novel between courses, existing entirely in my own company. At the next table, a couple was clearly on their honeymoon, feeding each other dessert and gazing into each other's eyes with that intoxicating new marriage glow. A year ago, watching them would have triggered envy and self-pity. Why did I not have that? What was wrong with me? But now, full and content and genuinely happy in my solitude, I felt only a distant goodwill toward their joy. My contentment was not dependent on duplicating their experience. I had built something different, something entirely my own, and it was enough. Saturday morning began with the sunrise kayaking session on the lake. Our guide, a young man named Chris with an infectious enthusiasm for the natural world, led a small group of 5 guests across water so still it mirrored the sky perfectly. As we paddled, he pointed out osprey nests, great blue herons stalking fish in the shallows, and a family of otters playing near the shore. I had brought my camera in a waterproof case and captured shots that took my breath away. The light perfect, the composition effortless. "You have a good eye," Chris commented, maneuvering his kayak beside mine as we paused to watch the otters. "Professional?" I smiled, the word still feeling new and slightly unbelievable on my tongue. "Yes, actually. I am a photographer for a conservation nonprofit. This is research as much as relaxation." We talked easily about wildlife photography, conservation challenges, and the particular magic of Michigan's natural spaces. He mentioned that the resort occasionally hired photographers for their promotional materials and events, asked if I had a business card. I did, something I had started carrying only recently, still getting used to presenting myself as a professional rather than a hobbyist. We exchanged information, a connection that felt promising in ways that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with professional respect. Back at the resort, I showered and changed for the therapeutic art class, held in a studio space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest. Our instructor, an artist named Diana, guided 8 guests through creating abstract paintings inspired by our experiences in nature. She encouraged us to work without overthinking, to let color and movement express feeling rather than representation. I painted chaos giving way to calm, dark, turbulent colors at the bottom, gradually lightening and opening into blues and golds at the top. Diana paused behind me, studying the canvas. "This feels like transformation," she observed quietly. "Like you are documenting a journey from somewhere dark toward light." I nodded, not trusting my voice. She understood what I had created better than my family had understood anything about me in years. Saturday afternoon, while Sarah was presumably getting ready for her rehearsal dinner, I was in the resort's library, a cozy room with leather chairs and shelves of books, reading and dozing and existing without purpose or deadline. A text came through on my iPad, which I had left on for potential work emergencies. It was from Amanda, Sarah's maid of honor, somehow reaching me despite my blocked phone. "The family is asking about you. Your mom is upset. Sarah keeps looking at the door like you might show up. This is your last chance to make things right. The rehearsal dinner is at 6 p.m. at the Grove restaurant if you change your mind." I stared at that message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. I would not be manipulated by manufactured urgency or emotional hostage-taking. Sarah was not looking at the door hoping I would appear. She was performing disappointment for an audience, using my absence as a prop in her narrative of martyrdom. I turned off the iPad and returned to my book. That evening's dinner was another solitary masterpiece. I sat outside on the restaurant's terrace, wrapped in a provided blanket against the cool autumn air, and watched the sun set while eating roasted chicken with herbs I could not name and vegetables so fresh they tasted like the earth they came from. Other diners chatted and laughed around me, but I was completely comfortable in my silence, my aloneness transformed into something precious rather than pitiable. Sunday morning, the actual wedding day, I woke naturally at dawn without an alarm. I went for a long walk on the resort's trails, camera in hand, capturing the morning light filtering through the forest canopy. I photographed mushrooms growing on fallen logs, spiderwebs jeweled with dew, and a doe with 2 fawns who watched me with more curiosity than fear. Each image felt like a small act of rebellion against the narrative that I should be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. My phone, still off and buried in my suitcase, was presumably exploding with messages. "Where are you? How could you? Sarah is devastated. You are ruining everything." But those messages existed in a reality I had consciously stepped out of. Here, in this moment, in this forest, I was complete and unbothered and exactly where I chose to be. The spa had a meditation session at 10 a.m., the exact time Sarah's wedding ceremony was scheduled to begin. I joined a small group in a room designed for silence, with soft lighting and cushions arranged in a circle. Our guide led us through breathing exercises and then into a silent meditation focused on gratitude. As I sat there, breathing deeply, I found myself genuinely grateful for this rupture in my family. It had freed me from the exhausting work of trying to matter to people determined to diminish me. When the session ended, I felt lighter than I had in years. I went to the spa for my scheduled facial, lying on the table while a skilled esthetician worked products into my skin with gentle, practiced movements. She talked about skincare and self-care, about how taking time for yourself was not vanity but necessity. "You cannot pour from an empty cup," she said, a cliché that somehow felt profound in this context. My cup, so long empty while I tried to fill everyone else's, was finally, slowly, being replenished. Sunday afternoon, I took advantage of the resort's pool, an indoor heated space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. I swam lazy laps, the repetitive motion meditative, my mind blissfully quiet. Other guests came and went, families with children, couples, solo travelers like myself. Everyone was welcome. Everyone belonged. It was such a simple concept, yet so completely absent from my family experience. By evening, Sarah's reception would be in full swing. I imagined the speeches, the first dance, the champagne toasts to the happy couple. I imagined my empty chair at the family table, my absence a silent testimony to choices made and boundaries drawn. I wondered if anyone would ask about me with genuine concern, or only with irritation at the inconvenience of explaining my defection. I would probably never know, and I was surprised to discover I did not actually care. My final evening at the resort, I treated myself to the most expensive dinner on the menu, a Wagyu steak that cost as much as I usually spent on groceries for a week. I paired it with a glass of 20-year-old scotch, smooth and complex, and lingered over the meal for 2 hours. At the next table, a woman celebrating her 60th birthday with her adult daughters caught my eye and smiled. "Celebrating something special?" she asked kindly. "Yes," I answered truthfully. "My independence." She raised her glass toward me in a toast. "The best thing worth celebrating." Her daughters joined the gesture, 4 women I did not know acknowledging something they understood intuitively. I raised my scotch in return, blinking back unexpected tears. This, I thought, is what family should feel like. Recognition without requirement, celebration without condition. Monday morning checkout felt bittersweet. I had loved this weekend, this sanctuary, this permission to exist without justification. But I also felt ready to return to my real life, the one I was building with intention and clarity. As I loaded my car, Chris from the kayaking tour appeared with a folder. "Hey, I talked to our events manager about you. She is definitely interested in hiring you for some promotional shoots. Here is her card and information about upcoming events that need coverage. No pressure, but if you are interested, reach out." I took the folder, genuinely delighted. This weekend had given me not just rest, but opportunity. Connections forming organically, because I had shown up as myself. Professional and capable and worth investing in. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "I will definitely follow up." The drive home was peaceful. 4 hours of podcasts and autumn scenery, and the satisfied exhaustion of someone who has genuinely rested. I did not turn on my phone until I pulled into my apartment parking lot, and even then, I waited several minutes before powering it up, bracing for the onslaught. 214 messages, 73 missed calls. My voicemail was full. I scrolled through the preview texts without opening them, seeing the arc of the weekend in frantic snapshots. "Where are you? The wedding is starting. How could you miss this? Sarah is crying. You are so selfish. This is unforgivable. We are done with you." That last message was from my mother, sent Sunday night. "After what you have put this family through this weekend, I do not know if we can ever forgive you. You have broken Sarah's heart and embarrassed all of us. I hope your little vacation was worth destroying your family." I read it twice, waiting to feel something: guilt, regret, fear. But all I felt was a quiet certainty that I had made exactly the right choice. I had not destroyed my family. I had simply stopped pretending that their version of family was acceptable. There was a difference, and I was done explaining it to people who refused to understand. I deleted every message without reading most of them, cleared my voicemail without listening, and blocked several more numbers that had found ways to reach me. Then I unpacked my bag, carefully removing the painting I had created in the art class, and hung it prominently in my living room. Dark to light, chaos to calm. The journey documented in abstract strokes of color that told the truth better than words ever could. That night, I posted a photo from my weekend, a shot of the sunrise over the lake taken from my kayak, with a simple caption: "Sometimes the most important celebration is the one where you honor yourself. Grateful for this weekend of peace, beauty, and choosing my own worth." The responses were interesting. Casual acquaintances liked it. A few friends who did not know about the family drama commented on the beautiful photo. But there were also messages from people I barely knew, women mostly, who seemed to understand what I was really saying. "Good for you. You deserve this. Choosing yourself is brave." Their recognition of something they had probably experienced themselves, the radical act of prioritizing your own dignity, felt like finding my people. I did not mention the wedding I had missed. I did not have to. The people who mattered understood. The people who did not never would. And for the first time in my life, I was completely at peace with that division. The silence that followed my return was different from any quiet I had experienced before. It was not the absence of contact I had occasionally experienced when busy with work. This was deliberate exclusion, my family collectively enacting the punishment I had apparently earned. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing from my parents or Sarah. No calls, no texts, no accidental run-ins at places we had historically overlapped. It was as if I had been erased as thoroughly as my name on that wedding invitation. I filled the space their absence created with work that actually mattered to me. The conservation nonprofit assigned me a major project, photographing wetland restoration efforts across 3 counties, work that would take months and significantly expand my portfolio. The resort contact Chris had provided turned into a contract for their winter promotional materials, a paid gig that would supplement my income nicely. I spent my evenings editing photographs, my weekends hiking new trails, my time building a life that felt authentically mine. 3 weeks after the wedding, a large envelope arrived at my apartment, addressed in my mother's precise handwriting. Inside was a complete set of professional wedding photos. Sarah radiant in her white dress, Derek handsome in his tuxedo, my parents beaming with pride. A note, in my mother's hand, read, "Since you chose not to be part of this celebration, we thought you should at least see what you missed. Sarah and Derek are blissfully happy. We had a wonderful day despite your absence." I looked through the photos methodically, studying the images with the professional eye I had developed. They were technically proficient, but emotionally sterile. Everyone performing happiness rather than genuinely experiencing it. In several shots, I noticed my mother looking toward the back of the venue, her smile tight. In one, Sarah was not looking at Derek, but at something off camera, her expression momentarily unguarded and strangely sad. I put the photos back in the envelope and filed them away. My mother had sent them expecting what? Regret? Jealousy? Proof that I had made a terrible mistake? But all I felt was confirmation. This celebration I had been excluded from as myself was exactly the kind of performance I no longer had any interest in attending. The 4th week brought an unexpected development. Derek's sister, Christina, whom I had met briefly at family gatherings but barely knew, sent me a friend request on social media along with a message. "Hey, Rebecca, I know this is random, but I wanted to reach out. I was at the wedding and heard some things about why you weren't there. I just wanted to say I think you made the right call. The way your family talked about you in your absence was pretty disturbing. Anyway, I am sorry you had to deal with that." I accepted her request and responded cautiously. "Thank you for saying that. Can I ask what they said?" Her reply came quickly. "Your mom told anyone who asked that you were too jealous of Sarah to attend, that you had always been competitive and couldn't handle her being happy. Your dad said you were going through some mental health issues related to your weight loss and needed space. Sarah told her friends you had always resented her and used the invitation as an excuse to punish her. It was. A lot. None of it matched the person I remembered meeting." I read that message 3 times, each time feeling a different shade of anger. They had not just excluded me. They had reconstructed the narrative entirely, turning my boundary setting into pathology, my self-protection into aggression, my reasonable response to disrespect into evidence of instability. It was gaslighting on a family-wide scale, and they had done it publicly, in front of everyone who mattered to them. I thanked Christina for her honesty and asked if she would be willing to document what she had heard, just for my records. She agreed, sending me a detailed account of the various explanations my family had offered for my absence, each more damning than the last. I added it to my evidence folder, which was becoming a substantial record of exactly who these people were when they thought I was not watching. The 5th week brought the confrontation I had been half expecting. My mother showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning, her face set in the expression that meant she had come prepared for battle. I almost did not let her in, but curiosity won. I wanted to hear what she could possibly say that would justify anything that had happened. She sat on my couch, declined my offer of coffee, and got straight to her prepared speech. "Rebecca, this has gone on long enough. You made your point. You were upset about the invitation, and you expressed that by missing the wedding. Fine. You hurt your sister deeply, but she is willing to forgive you if you apologize. We can all move past this if you just acknowledge that you overreacted." I looked at her. This woman who had raised me but apparently never knew me, and felt a strange calm. "I have nothing to apologize for," I said simply. "I was invited to Sarah's wedding as a nameless guest. I declined. That is not an overreaction. That is a reasonable response to being treated as interchangeable and disposable." "It was a printing error," my mother insisted, a new explanation I had not heard before. "The wedding planner made a mistake with the guest list software. Sarah was devastated when she realized. But by then, you had already thrown your tantrum and refused to discuss it like an adult." That is interesting, I replied, because in her email to me, Sarah said it was the planner's suggestion to simplify the guest list. Now it is a software error? Which lie am I supposed to believe, Mom? My mother's face flushed. Do not speak to me like that. I am your mother. Then act like one, I shot back, years of swallowed responses finally finding voice. Mothers protect their children. They defend them. They do not justify one daughter erasing another to protect the golden child's spotlight. You knew exactly what that invitation meant, and you chose Sarah's comfort over my dignity. You have been making that choice my entire life. That is not fair, she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. We have always treated you girls equally. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Equally? When was the last time you asked about my photography business? When did you last acknowledge that I have a career I am proud of? You know everything about Sarah's job, her hobbies, her friends, her life. What do you know about mine, Mom? When is my birthday? What is my favorite food? What am I most afraid of? What makes me happiest? She stared at me, unable to answer a single question. The silence stretched between us, definitive proof of exactly what I had been claiming. That is what I thought. I said quietly, You do not know me because you have never been interested in knowing me. I have always been the supporting character in Sarah's story. And I am done auditioning for a better role in a production that will never cast me as anything but background. My mother stood abruptly. If this is how you feel, I do not know why I bothered coming here. Sarah was right. You are so wrapped up in your own victimhood that you cannot see how much you are hurting people who love you. No, I corrected. Sarah is wrapped up in her own narrative where she is always the victim and always deserves everyone's devotion regardless of how she treats them. And you are wrapped up in maintaining the fiction that our family is normal and healthy when it is neither of those things. I am not hurting anyone, Mom. I am just refusing to be hurt anymore. There is a difference. She left without another word, the door closing behind her with finality. I sat on my couch for a long time afterward, emotionally exhausted, but strangely proud. I had said things I needed to say, truths I had swallowed for 29 years. There was no going back from this, and I did not want to. That evening, I received an email from my father, formal and cold. Your mother came home very upset from her visit with you. Your behavior is becoming increasingly concerning. We have tried to be patient and understanding, but your continued hostility toward your family is unacceptable. Until you are ready to apologize to Sarah and participate in this family like a mature adult, we think it is best if we maintain our distance. We hope you will eventually realize what you are throwing away. I read it once, then moved it to a folder labeled Final Communications. They thought they were punishing me with distance. They did not understand that distance was exactly what I needed, what I had been trying to create for years but felt too guilty to fully claim. They had given me permission to do what I had already chosen. It was almost funny. The weeks that followed were surprisingly peaceful. Without the constant background noise of family expectation and disapproval, I found I had more energy for everything else. My photography flourished. I booked 3 more substantial contracts. I started dating casually, nothing serious, but enjoying the company of men who found me interesting rather than convenient. I made new friends through a local hiking group, people who knew nothing about my family history and liked me for who I was now, not who I had failed to be. 2 months after the wedding, I was preparing for a gallery showing of my wildlife photography, a small exhibition at a local art center, but my first official show. I had been working toward this for months, carefully curating my best images, writing artist statements, coordinating with the gallery director. It felt like vindication of every choice I had made, proof that the dreams my family had dismissed as hobbies were actually valid and valuable. The opening was scheduled for a Friday evening. I had invited a careful selection of people, professional contacts, friends, the hiking group, Tyler, a man I had been seeing who worked as an environmental lawyer and actually understood my work. I had not invited my family. I had not even told them about it. This was mine, untainted by their judgment or dismissive tolerance. The day before the opening, I received a Facebook message from Amanda, Sarah's maid of honor, whom I had not heard from since her rehearsal dinner text. Hey, Rebecca, saw online that you have a gallery show tomorrow. That is amazing. I always thought your photos were really good. Just wanted to say congrats. Also, not sure if you have heard, but Sarah and Derek are having some issues. She has been pretty down lately. Thought you should know in case you wanted to reach out. I stared at that message, trying to parse the motivations behind it. Was Amanda genuinely being kind? Or was this another attempt to pull me back into family drama, to make me feel responsible for Sarah's happiness? I decided it did not matter. Thanks for the congrats on the show, I wrote back. As for Sarah, I hope she finds whatever happiness she is looking for, but that is no longer my responsibility to manage or fix. Amanda's response was quick. Fair enough. Good luck tomorrow. Your work deserves to be celebrated. The gallery opening exceeded every expectation. 47 people attended, far more than the gallery director had predicted for a first-time artist. My photographs, 20 images ranging from intimate macro shots of insects to sweeping landscapes of Michigan wilderness, lined the walls under professional lighting. Each piece had a small card with title, location, and a brief note about the conservation issues related to that ecosystem. People genuinely engaged with the work, asking thoughtful questions, commenting on composition and emotional impact, several expressing interest in purchasing prints. Tyler stood beside me for most of the evening, his hand occasionally finding the small of my back, a quiet gesture of support that felt nothing like the performative affection I had witnessed at family gatherings. The gallery director pulled me aside midway through the evening. Rebecca, this is going exceptionally well. We have had serious purchase inquiries on 8 pieces already. I would like to talk to you about a follow-up show, maybe something more extensive in 6 months. You have a real gift for making people care about what they are seeing. I was still processing that offer when I saw them. My mother, my father, and Sarah, standing just inside the gallery entrance, looking around with expressions I could not quite read. My stomach dropped. I had not invited them. I had not told them. How did they even know? They spotted me at the same moment I saw them. My mother's face brightened with what looked like nervous hope. Sarah looked uncertain, almost fragile in a way I had never seen before. My father's expression was carefully neutral. They moved toward me as a unit, navigating through the crowd of strangers. Rebecca, my mother began, her voice soft and carefully modulated. We saw the announcement for your show online. We wanted to come support you. I looked at the 3 of them standing there, interrupting the first professional celebration I had ever had that was purely mine, and felt something harden in my chest. Tyler, sensing the tension, stepped closer to me in silent solidarity. The gallery director, reading the situation with professional intuition, tactfully excused herself. How did you find out about this? I asked, my voice level but cold. Sarah's friend Amanda mentioned it, my mother admitted. We thought, this is wonderful. Our daughter is having an art show. We should be there. She said it as if this were the most natural thing in the world, as if the past 2 months of silent treatment and accusations of mental instability had never happened. You were not invited, I said simply. This is not a family event. This is a professional event. You should leave. Sarah flinched like I had slapped her. Rebecca, please, we came because we are proud of you. Look at all this. She gestured around the gallery. These photographs are incredible. Why did you not tell us you were doing something this important? The audacity of that question, coming from someone who had erased my name from her wedding invitation because my presence might distract from her moment, was breathtaking. Because you have never cared about my photography, Sarah. You have always called it a hobby. Mom literally told me last year that I needed to focus on getting a real career instead of wasting time with my camera. My mother's face flushed. I did not say it quite like that. You said exactly that, I corrected. At Thanksgiving, right after Sarah announced her promotion, you told me it was nice that I had a creative outlet, but I needed to be more pragmatic, like my sister. A small crowd had started to notice our conversation, the tension palpable enough to draw attention. Tyler leaned close and whispered, Want me to have them removed? The gallery director will back you up. I considered it. The clean, dramatic gesture of having my family escorted out. But I decided on a different approach. No, I said quietly to Tyler. Then to my family. You can stay. But you are not here as my family. You are just visitors to a public event. Those are the terms. My father, who had been silent until now, spoke up. That is unnecessarily harsh, Rebecca. We are trying to make amends. Amends would require acknowledging what you did wrong, I replied. Have any of you apologized? Has anyone said, "We are sorry for erasing your identity on the wedding invitation"? We are sorry for telling everyone you were mentally unstable when you set a boundary. We are sorry for treating you like you only mattered when you were convenient. The silence that followed was answer enough. That is what I thought, I continued. So no, you are not making amends. You are performing family solidarity at an event that makes me look successful, because that reflects well on you. That is what this has always been about. How things look, not how they actually are. That is not fair, Sarah protested, tears welling in her eyes. I miss my sister. These past 2 months have been awful. My marriage is falling apart. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me because they blame me for the family fight, and I just wanted things to go back to normal. There it was, the real reason they were here. Sarah's life was not going according to plan, and she wanted to rebuild the family structure that had always cushioned her failures. I was supposed to be the supporting character who rushed in to make everything better, to forgive and forget, to resume my assigned role in her narrative. Normal was you treating me like I was less important than you, I said quietly. Normal was me shrinking so you could shine. Normal was our parents caring more about your feelings than my dignity. I do not want normal back, Sarah. I want something better. And if you cannot offer that, then we do not have anything to rebuild. Christina, Derek's sister, had apparently arrived sometime during this confrontation. She approached now, touching my arm gently. Rebecca, I just wanted to say the exhibition is beautiful. That shot of the heron is absolutely stunning. She shot a cool glance at my family. Glad to see you celebrating yourself properly. Sarah noticed Christina, and her expression shifted to something uglier. Of course you are here, taking her side like you took her side at the wedding, telling everyone I was a bad sister. I did not tell everyone, Christina corrected calmly. I told a few people what I actually witnessed, which was your family trashing Rebecca to anyone who asked where she was. That is not taking sides. That is just reporting facts. My father stepped forward, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he used when he wanted to shut down conflict. This is not the time or place for this discussion. Rebecca, we will leave since that is clearly what you want. But this conversation is not over. Yes, it is, I said with finality. There is nothing left to discuss. You made your choices. I made mine. We are done. They left, my mother crying softly, my father's arm around her shoulders, Sarah walking slightly behind them looking lost and small. Several people in the gallery watched them go, then turned to me with expressions ranging from sympathy to curiosity. I took a deep breath, squeezed Tyler's hand, and turned back to an older couple who had been examining my photograph of a Luna moth. Sorry about that, I said, forcing myself back into professional mode. Family drama. Now, you had a question about this piece? The rest of the evening was a blur of conversations and congratulations and champagne toasts. When the gallery finally closed at 10 p.m., I had sold 11 prints and secured commitments for 3 commissioned pieces. The director confirmed she wanted to schedule the follow-up show for early spring. Tyler took me to a late-night diner where we ate breakfast food and laughed about everything except my family. You were magnificent tonight, he said, reaching across the table for my hand. The way you handled them showing up like that, the clarity of your boundaries. I was in awe. I have had a lot of practice setting boundaries they ignore, I replied. But thank you. Are you okay? He asked seriously. That was brutal. I considered the question honestly. I am better than okay. For the first time in my life, I chose myself publicly, in front of everyone. I did not back down. I did not perform forgiveness I do not feel. I was just honest. It felt incredible. The next morning brought the fallout I expected. My mother called 12 times before I blocked her number. My father sent a long email detailing all the ways I had humiliated the family at a public event, how my behavior was proof I needed professional help, how they were wash their hands of me if I could not be civil. Sarah's message was shorter but more wounded. I cannot believe you chose strangers over your own sister. I hope you are happy with your decision. I was. That was the part they could not understand. I was genuinely, profoundly happy with my decision. I responded only to my father's email, keeping it brief. You are right. I did humiliate you publicly. The difference is you have been humiliating me privately for 29 years, and I finally decided I was worth more than that treatment. Consider your hands washed. We are done. 3 weeks later, Christina called me with interesting information. Sarah and Derek were separating. Apparently, Derek had been having an affair with a coworker that had started before the wedding. Sarah had suspected but married him anyway, hoping he would change. Now, 6 months into the marriage, the affair had become public knowledge, and Derek was moving out. Your mom called my mom asking if we knew any good divorce lawyers, Christina explained. She also said something about how, if you had just been at the wedding, this never would have happened. Like your presence would have magically prevented Derek from cheating. I almost laughed at the twisted logic. My absence from the wedding was now being blamed for Sarah's marriage falling apart. It was impressively narcissistic, even for my family. How is Sarah handling it? I asked, mostly out of morbid curiosity. Not well, Christina admitted. She is apparently devastated. Your mom keeps saying Sarah needs her sister right now, hinting heavily that you should reach out. I am sure she does, I replied, but I am not the support system Sarah gets to discard and retrieve at will. She made it very clear where I stood in her life. That door is closed. What I did not tell Christina was that part of me, a very small part, felt sad for Sarah. Not because her marriage had failed, but because she had built her entire identity on being the perfect daughter with the perfect life, and now that facade was crumbling. I knew what it felt like when your life did not match the story everyone expected. But I also knew Sarah would receive unconditional support from our parents, sympathy from extended family, and endless opportunities for reinvention. She would be fine. She always was. I, meanwhile, was thriving in ways I had never imagined possible. The gallery show had generated substantial professional attention. A conservation magazine wanted to hire me for a 6-month project documenting endangered species in the Great Lakes region. A publishing house reached out about a potential coffee table book of my Michigan wilderness photography. Tyler and I were growing closer, building something real and reciprocal that felt nothing like the performative relationships I had witnessed my whole life. 4 months after the wedding I did not attend, I got a letter from Sarah. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter, delivered to my apartment by mail. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won. The letter was long, pages of Sarah's neat handwriting covering both sides of expensive stationery. She wrote about her marriage falling apart, about how isolated she felt, about how she had always relied on me even when she did not show it. She acknowledged in the vaguest possible terms that maybe she had not always been the best sister. She wrote that she was in therapy now, working through some things, and her therapist had suggested she reach out to me. The letter ended with a request. I know I hurt you, Becca. I know I did not value you the way I should have. I am asking, not for immediate forgiveness, but for the possibility of rebuilding. Can we talk? Just talk. I miss my sister. I read that letter 3 times, and each time I felt a different emotion. The first reading brought unexpected tears, the little girl inside me who had always wanted her big sister's approval feeling seen, finally. The second reading brought anger at the minimal accountability, the maybe and the passive voice, the way Sarah made herself the victim even in her apology. The third reading brought clarity. I wrote back, also by hand, also on nice stationery. Sarah, I appreciate you reaching out and acknowledging that you hurt me. However, maybe not always being the best sister is not an apology. It is a vague statement that avoids taking real responsibility. You did not just fail to be the best sister. You actively excluded me from your wedding as myself, reduced me to a nameless guest, and when I set a boundary about that treatment, you and our parents spent months telling people I was mentally unstable and jealous. You want to talk. But what is there to talk about? Will you acknowledge specifically what you did wrong? Will you apologize without conditions or qualifications? Will you recognize that rebuilding requires action, not just words? And most importantly, are you willing to accept that I have built a life I love that does not include you, and that any relationship we might have in the future will be entirely on different terms than what we had before? I do not need you to be part of my life, Sarah. I needed you to be a sister who saw me and valued me. You were not. So before we talk about rebuilding, I need to know, have you actually changed, or are you just lonely because your marriage failed and mom and dad are not enough to fill the void? Think about that. If you can answer those questions honestly, we might have something to talk about. Until then, I wish you well in your therapy and your healing. But I am healing too, and that means protecting myself from relationships that hurt me. Rebecca. I mailed the letter and felt a weight lift. I had not slammed the door completely, but I had not opened it either. I had held my ground while leaving space for the possibility that Sarah might actually do the work to become someone I could have a relationship with. But I was not holding my breath. 6 months after the wedding, I stood on a cliff overlooking Lake Michigan, photographing the winter sunrise over water so cold it steamed in the frigid air. My photography book deal was finalized. The Great Lakes Conservation Project was producing work I was prouder of than anything I had created before. Tyler was at his own work, but we were planning a trip to Iceland together in spring, my first international travel, his first vacation in 3 years. My phone buzzed with a text. Christina. Heard from my mom that your mom is telling people you have gone no contact and refused to speak to the family. Just wanted to check if you are okay and say that some of us understand why. I smiled, typing back, I am more than okay. I am free. And I was. Free from the exhausting work of trying to matter to people who had decided I did not. Free from shrinking to fit into their narrative. Free to build a life that reflected my values, my passions, my worth. The family I had been born into had taught me what I did not want. Now I was creating what I did. The sunrise exploded across the horizon, gold and pink and orange painting the sky in colors so vivid they seemed unreal. I captured it through my lens, this moment of perfect beauty that existed whether anyone acknowledged it or not. Like me. Beautiful and whole and worthy, with or without their recognition. I posted the photograph later with a caption I had been thinking about for months. Worth is not determined by who values you. It is inherent. It is yours. It always was. The only question is whether you are brave enough to claim it. The responses poured in. Friends, colleagues, strangers who understood. And somewhere I imagined my family seeing it and missing the point entirely, thinking it was about them. But it was not. It had never been about them. It was about me, finally, choosing myself. And that choice had set me free. 1 year after the wedding, I chose not to attend. I was preparing for the launch of my photography book titled Reclaimed Wilderness and Self in the Great Lakes. The publisher had organized a book tour across Michigan with readings, signings, and gallery exhibitions in 6 cities. My photograph of the winter sunrise over Lake Michigan had made the cover, an image that had been featured in National Geographic's online edition and won a Regional Conservation Photography Award. Tyler and I had moved in together 3 months earlier, combining our belongings in a renovated loft in downtown Grand Rapids with northern light perfect for editing photographs. His environmental law practice was flourishing, and we had developed a comfortable rhythm of supporting each other's work while maintaining independent lives. It was the healthiest relationship I had ever experienced, built on mutual respect rather than obligation or performance. The conservation nonprofit had promoted me to lead photographer and brought me on full-time with benefits, salary, and creative control over major projects. I was making more money than I ever had in my administrative career and doing work that actually mattered to me. My Instagram following had grown to 60,000, mostly people genuinely interested in wildlife conservation and nature photography, not followers who knew me personally. I had not spoken to my parents or Sarah in 10 months. The last communication had been my letter to Sarah after her marriage fell apart. She never responded to my questions about genuine accountability, which told me everything I needed to know about her readiness to do actual work. Occasionally, I heard updates through Christina, who had become a genuine friend. Sarah had moved back in with our parents after her divorce. Derek had married his affair partner, adding insult to Sarah's injury. My mother was apparently telling people I was going through something that made me unavailable to the family, a face-saving narrative that cast them as patient and me as troubled. The book launch was scheduled for a Saturday evening at an upscale bookstore in Ann Arbor, with a wine and cheese reception afterward. I had invited carefully friends, colleagues, Tyler's family, members of my hiking group, professional contacts. Not my family. They were not part of this chapter of my life, and I saw no reason to pretend otherwise. 3 days before the launch, I received an unexpected call from my father. I almost did not answer, the blocked number suggesting spam. But something made me pick up. Rebecca. His voice was tight, controlled. I need to speak with you about something important. What is it? I asked, not offering warmth or small talk. Your mother has been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. She is scheduled for surgery next week. Sarah thought you should know. The information landed with complicated weight. My mother had breast cancer. I was supposed to feel something. Concern, fear, the impulse to rush to her side. But what I actually felt was a distant sadness, the kind you might feel reading about a stranger's misfortune. I am sorry to hear that, I said sincerely. I hope her treatment goes well. That is it. My father's voice rose slightly. Your mother has cancer, and all you can say is you hope it goes well? She needs her family right now, Rebecca. Both her daughters. I am not her daughter in any meaningful sense anymore, I replied calmly. You all made that very clear. I was a guest of the bride's family, remember? A nameless obligation. An embarrassment to be managed. A problem to be solved. I wish Mom the best with her health, truly. But I am not rushing back to play supportive daughter in a family that never supported me. For God's sake, Rebecca, she has cancer. My father was openly angry now. Can you put your petty grievances aside for one moment and be there for your mother? My grievances are not petty, Dad, I said, my own anger rising. And Mom's cancer does not erase the years of being treated as less important than Sarah. It does not erase the wedding invitation that reduced me to a nameless guest. It does not erase you telling everyone I was mentally unstable when I set a boundary. Illness does not grant retroactive absolution for how you have all treated me. You are unbelievable, he spat. I do not even know who you have become. I have become someone who knows her worth, I replied. Someone who does not accept crumbs from people who should offer whole meals. Someone who chooses herself when no one else will. You never knew me, Dad. You only knew the version of me that existed to make Sarah look better by comparison. That person is gone. He hung up without another word. I sat on my couch afterward, processing the information and my own response. Tyler found me there when he came home from work, immediately recognizing that something had happened. My mom has breast cancer, I told him. Early stage, surgery next week. My dad called to guilt me into showing up and being supportive family. Tyler sat beside me, taking my hand. How are you feeling? Sad for her, I admitted. Cancer is terrible, and I would not wish it on anyone. But I also feel like this is being used as emotional manipulation. Like I am supposed to forget everything and rush back because serious illness changes the rules. And I do not think it does. Or at least, it should not have to. You do not owe them your presence just because something bad happened, Tyler said gently. Compassion can be offered from a distance. You can hope she recovers while still protecting yourself from people who have hurt you repeatedly. I leaned into him, grateful for his understanding. Am I a terrible person for not dropping everything? No, he said firmly. You are a person with healthy boundaries, who knows that family reconciliation cannot be forced by crisis. If they wanted you there, they should have treated you better when there was not a crisis. The next day, I sent my mother a flower arrangement with a card. Wishing you strength and swift healing. Take care of yourself. I did not offer to visit. I did not call. I maintained the boundary I had established because illness, however serious, did not obligate me to subject myself to people who had demonstrated they would hurt me. My father called again, furious about the flowers. Flowers? You send flowers like she is some acquaintance, not your mother? Sarah has been here every day, taking her to appointments, sitting with her, being an actual daughter, and you send flowers? Sarah lives with her, I pointed out. I live 3 hours away in a life I have built away from you all. I am glad Sarah is being supportive. That is what works for their relationship. This is what works for mine. You do not have a relationship with your mother, he countered. You walked away from this family. You erased me from Sarah's wedding, I shot back. You made me a nameless guest in my own family. I did not walk away. I was pushed out, and I simply stopped fighting to stay in a place that did not want me. There is a difference. The book launch arrived despite the family drama. The bookstore was packed, standing room only, more than 100 people filling the space to celebrate work I had poured my heart into. I read excerpts from the book, essays I had written about the relationship between external wilderness and internal landscapes, how reclaiming one often meant reclaiming the other. During the Q&A afterward, someone asked about the personal journey behind the transformation in my work. I answered honestly, 3 years ago, I was working a job I hated, living a life that felt like it belonged to someone else, and shrinking myself to fit into expectations that were never going to accommodate who I actually was. I started the work of reclamation, physically through health changes, creatively through committing to photography, and emotionally through setting boundaries with people who did not value me. This book is the evidence of that journey, proof that you can build something beautiful from the wreckage of who you were told to be. The audience applauded. People lined up afterward to have books signed, many sharing their own stories of transformation and boundary setting. One woman in her 50s waited until the line had finished, then approached me with tears in her eyes. I need to tell you something, she said. I am your mother's sister, your Aunt Karen. We have not spoken in 20 years because of a falling out over how she was treating you girls. I saw the book announcement and had to come. I am so proud of you for becoming this person despite everything. I stared at her, trying to place the face in old memories. Aunt Karen, my mother's younger sister who had disappeared from family gatherings when I was around 9. I had never known why. You stopped coming around because of how she treated us? I asked. She nodded. I tried to tell her she was playing favorites, that she was damaging you by always putting Sarah first. We had a massive fight at a family Christmas. She told me to mind my business or stop coming around. So I stopped. I regret not fighting harder for you, Rebecca, but seeing who you have become, the work you are doing, I am just in awe. We talked for an hour after the event ended, Aunt Karen filling in pieces of family history I had never known. Apparently, my mother had always needed to be the center of attention, had always created golden child dynamics, even with her own siblings. Sarah was simply the latest recipient of favoritism that had damaged multiple relationships across generations. Your grandmother did the same thing with us, Karen explained. Your mom was the golden child, and I was the disappointment. It damaged me for years until I went to therapy and learned I did not need her approval to have worth. When I saw her doing the same thing to you that was done to me, I tried to intervene. Obviously, it did not work. It helped to know I was not imagining it, I said, that the dynamic was real. We exchanged contact information, Aunt Karen making me promise to stay in touch. You have family who sees you, she said as we hugged goodbye. We may not be the family you were born into, but we are the family who chooses you. 2 weeks after the book launch, Christina called with news. So your dad showed up at my parents' house demanding we stop maintaining contact with you. He said we were encouraging your estrangement from the family and undermining their attempts at reconciliation. What did your parents say? I asked. My mom told him that you were an adult who made your own choices, and that his attempts to control who you associated with were exactly why you had set boundaries in the first place. My dad basically told him to leave and not come back unless he wanted to apologize for being presumptuous. I laughed, imagining my father's reaction to being dismissed. How did that go over? About as well as you would expect. He left angry. But here is the interesting part. My mom ran into your mom at the grocery store yesterday. Your mom asked if I was still in contact with you, and when my mom said yes, your mom actually asked if you were okay. Not angry, just genuinely asking if you were doing all right. That piece of information surprised me. What did your mom say? She said you were thriving, that your book was doing well, and that you seemed genuinely happy. Your mom got teary and said, I am glad one of my daughters figured out how to be happy. Then she walked away. It was weird. I processed that, this glimpse of my mother as something other than the united front of disapproval and dismissal. Maybe her cancer diagnosis had shifted something. Maybe watching Sarah's life fall apart while mine flourished had cracked her certainty. Or maybe it meant nothing, just a moment of vulnerability that would not translate to actual change. 8 months after that conversation, Reclaimed won a regional book award for nonfiction. The recognition came with a cash prize, speaking opportunities, and substantial media attention. My Instagram following doubled. I was invited to give talks at universities about conservation photography and the intersection of personal transformation and environmental advocacy. Through all of it, I maintained the boundaries I had set. I did not reach out to my family. They did not reach out to me except for occasional attempts by my father to demand I participate in some family obligation or other. Each time I declined politely and repeated that until they were ready to acknowledge what they had done and genuinely apologize, we had nothing to discuss. Tyler and I got engaged on a photography expedition in Iceland, him proposing on a black sand beach with the northern lights dancing overhead. When I posted the news, the responses were overwhelmingly joyful. Friends, colleagues, Aunt Karen, Christina, everyone who had witnessed my journey celebrating this next chapter. My mother somehow found out and sent a card with a brief message. "Congratulations on your engagement. I wish you every happiness." No demands to be included in wedding planning. No guilt trips. Just a simple acknowledgement. I put the card away, uncertain what to do with this softened approach after so much hardness. 2 years after the wedding I did not attend, Sarah sent me a message on Instagram. "Congratulations on all your success. I have been following from a distance. Your work is truly beautiful. I know I have no right to ask, but would you be willing to meet for coffee sometime? No agenda. Just to talk." I understand if the answer is no. I stared at that message for 3 days before responding. I will consider it, but first, I need you to answer the questions I asked in my letter 2 years ago. Have you actually changed? Can you take real accountability? Are you willing to accept that any relationship we have will be entirely different than what we had before? I need honest answers, not what you think I want to hear. Her response came a week later, longer than a simple Instagram message should be. I have been in therapy for 2 years now. My therapist has helped me see that I was the golden child in a narcissistic family system, and that role damaged me as much as your role as the scapegoat damaged you. I did not choose to be favored, but I did choose to take advantage of it, and that was wrong. I erased you from my wedding invitation because Mom convinced me you would distract from my day, and I let her convince me because it made me feel important. It was cruel, and I am sorry. I cannot change the past. I cannot undo the years of dismissing your achievements or making you feel less than. But I can acknowledge it was wrong. I can tell you that I have done the work to understand why I behaved that way and how to be different. I do not expect you to trust me immediately. I do not expect you to let me back into your life without proof that I have changed. But I am asking for the chance to start, even if that starts with just one coffee where we can talk honestly. You were right that I reached out because I was lonely when my marriage failed. But staying in therapy, that was me choosing to actually change. Seeing your success while I fell apart did not make me jealous. It made me realize you had been right all along. Our family was toxic, I was complicit, and I needed to become someone better. I am trying. That is all I can offer. I showed the message to Tyler. What do you think? I think it is more accountability than you have gotten from anyone in your family, he said carefully. Whether it is genuine change or just better worded manipulation, only time will tell. But she answered your questions. The decision of whether to test that answer is yours. I thought about it for another week. Then I responded, 1 coffee, public place. No promises beyond that. If you are serious about having changed, you will understand why I need to protect myself. Let me know when you are free. We met 3 weeks later at a cafe in Detroit, halfway between where we each lived. Sarah looked different, not just older, but softer somehow, less polished and perfect. We ordered coffee and sat across from each other, 2 strangers who shared DNA and childhood, but little else. Thank you for agreeing to meet, she said. I am here, I replied. But I need you to understand this does not mean instant forgiveness or restored relationship. This is just talking. I know, she said, and I respect that. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her therapy journey, the realizations about our family dynamics, her divorce, and what she had learned about choosing partners who reinforced unhealthy patterns. She asked about my work, genuinely listening and asking thoughtful questions rather than waiting for her turn to talk. She acknowledged specific moments where she had hurt me, incidents I had half forgotten but that she had apparently worked through in therapy. The invitation was the final straw, was not it? She asked. But it was not the first hurt. It was just the one you decided you did not have to accept. Yes, I confirmed. It was a culmination. Every achievement dismissed. Every time I was made invisible so you could be visible. Every family gathering where I was tolerated rather than welcomed. The invitation just made it explicit. I am sorry, she said, and for the first time in our entire lives, it sounded genuine. I cannot fix it, but I am sorry. We parted with an agreement to meet again in a month. No promises beyond that. Just the possibility of rebuilding something entirely new from the wreckage of what had been. 5 months of monthly coffee dates later, Sarah asked if she could attend one of my speaking events at a university environmental conference. I agreed, curious to see how she would engage with my work in a professional context. She came alone, sat in the back, listened to my entire talk about conservation photography and personal transformation, and approached me afterward not for my attention, but to introduce herself to Tyler and genuinely congratulate him on our engagement. Your work is incredible, she told me before leaving. I mean it. I spent so many years dismissing it, and I was wrong. You built something real while I was chasing approval. I am learning from you, even now. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was something. An acknowledgement. A beginning. The possibility that people could change if they chose to do the work. My parents remained distant. My father never apologized, never acknowledged wrongdoing, simply sent birthday cards with money and nothing personal. My mother's cancer had gone into remission, and according to Aunt Karen, she had started her own therapy after the medical scare forced her to confront mortality, but she never reached out to make amends, seemingly content to let sleeping dogs lie. 3 years after the wedding I chose not to attend, Tyler and I planned our own wedding. Small, intimate, in Iceland where we had gotten engaged. We invited 40 people, carefully chosen, Aunt Karen, Christina and her family, Tyler's relatives, close friends, colleagues who had become family. Not my parents. Not yet, staged Sarah. 2 months before our wedding, Sarah asked if she could talk to me about something important. We met for coffee, our routine established now. I know I am not invited to your wedding, she began, and I understand why. I just wanted to tell you that I hope it is everything you want it to be, and I wanted to give you something. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check for $5,000. What is this? I asked. The letter is something I wrote in therapy. An amends letter. You do not have to read it now or ever, but I wanted you to have it. The money is what I calculated I owe you for all the times Mom and Dad paid for things for me, but not you. All the graduations, wedding expenses, first apartment deposits, car repairs. I made a list with my therapist. This does not cover everything, but it is a start. I do not want your forgiveness bought. I just want to restore some material balance for the imbalance that existed. I stared at the check, overwhelmed. Sarah, you do not have to accept it, she interrupted. But I needed to offer. The material inequality was real. This is me acknowledging that. I took the letter and the check home. Read the letter that night. 7 pages of detailed acknowledgement of specific hurts, specific patterns, specific moments where she had participated in my erasure. She did not ask for anything in return. Just offered the accounting of harm done and changes made. I deposited the check and used it to fund a scholarship for young women pursuing conservation photography, naming it after our grandmother, who I had barely known but who had seen me clearly enough to provide for my independence. A week before my wedding, I sent Sarah a text. Tyler and I are having a small post-wedding dinner when we return, just close friends and family. You are invited if you want to come. No pressure. But you have done the work. That matters. Her response was immediate. I would be honored. Thank you. My wedding in Iceland was perfect, intimate and genuine and full of people who had chosen me as much as I had chosen them. We married on that black sand beach where Tyler had proposed, the ocean wild behind us, the sky dramatic with clouds. Aunt Karen officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for our ceremony. The photographs, taken by a colleague, captured not just the event, but the joy. Real, unperformed, whole. At the post-wedding dinner back in Michigan, Sarah came alone, dressed simply, bringing a thoughtful gift for our home rather than anything ostentatious. She fit into the gathering quietly, not demanding attention, genuinely engaging with our friends, complimenting Tyler's family on raising such a good man. As the evening wound down, she approached me privately. Thank you for including me. I know I do not deserve it. You are right, I said. You do not deserve it based on the past, but you have done genuine work to change. That earned this invitation. The past cannot be fixed, Sarah, but maybe we can build something new. I would like that, she said, if you are willing. I looked at my sister, this woman who had spent so many years as my antagonist, now humbled and working to be better, and felt something shift, not instant trust. Not complete forgiveness, but the beginning of something that might eventually resemble a healthy sibling relationship. We will see, I said. One day at a time. She nodded, understanding that this was the best I could offer, and for the first time in our lives, it seemed to be enough. I stood with Tyler on our loft balcony that night, looking out over the city lights, feeling the weight of the past 3 years, from that devastating invitation to this moment of genuine peace. The journey had required losing a family to find myself. But in that loss, I had gained something infinitely more valuable, the unwavering knowledge of my own worth, independent of anyone's recognition or approval. No regrets? Tyler asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Not a single one, I replied, and meant it completely. The family I had been born into had taught me what conditional love looked like. The family I had chosen and built taught me what real love could be. Both lessons had been necessary. Both had shaped who I had become. But only one mattered now, and that made all the difference.